Today we are talking about an interesting paper from the HBR guides to setting your strategy. And here we are looking at the article titled 4 Ways to Pressure Test Your Strategy, and it is written by Rick Lynch and Jay Galliota. Now they talk about various ways in which you can determine if your strategy is robust or not. A strategy is usually formed when you want to attack a new problem or you want to enter a new marketplace. Something has changed and you need to be up to the task. So how do you know if your approach is robust or not? And the reality is sometimes we go in with one approach, but once we start executing, things change. We figure out that either our assumptions were not 100% correct or the input that we are getting from the market is a bit different. And at that point, we have to change our plan. So how robust are we? Have we factored in everything? If you have not, in that case, the approach that you've gone with is kind of bound to fail, or it will give you limited results because you only factored in so much. Now the authors talk about 4 approaches, but we'll spend time on the first one, which is called as building situational awareness. And here they define it as one way to build situational awareness is to talk through alternate realities. So let's say you've figured out one way to solve the problem, but there are multiple ways, right? Multiple ways to go about it. So think of the various things that could happen and factor into your plan. So this is a classic case where you would employ a what if, kind of an exercise. So with your team, just ask what if this could happen. So you're throwing multiple possibilities, basically trying to see if your plan is up to the task or not. I mean, imagine if you were a cricket team and you're planning for the best batsman, right? As a bowling attack, you plan for the best batsman, and let's say your plan is successful and they get out for very cheap runs. So you think that your job is done. But what if the tail-enders, the people who are not supposed to be good batsmen, what if they start hitting the ball well? At that point, if you've not figured out how to tackle that scenario, then regardless of your plan being succeeding, overall you will lose the match. So how do you build this situational awareness into your planning? So do a what if exercise with your team and then figure out if you have the resources, if you have the awareness and the ability to tackle those what if scenarios. At this point, I'll also caution you about a what if exercise because you can keep throwing in weird kind of what if scenarios. So let's say if you are a cricket team and if each player, which is 11 people, start contributing like 5 different what if exercises. So you have 55 different scenarios and permutation combinations of those. You could spend a whole lot of your time doing analysis. So it's quite easy to get stuck in this analysis paralysis loop. So the way I have tackled such a scenario is that if you divide the work amongst your team members, like give them some time to think of alternate scenarios. What is it that could happen? What is it that if it goes wrong, you will be impacted badly? Or think of scenarios in which if the market conditions change like rapidly. For example, we just went through COVID cycle. Now that we know the impact a pandemic can have, everyone should be preparing for, okay, what if we encounter such a scenario again? So give each team member a premise that, hey, here is the problem that we are after. Here is how we are going to solve about it. What are the other scenarios that could be considered? Give people that time to think. Maybe they take a day, maybe they take a couple of days to think about it. But afterwards, they're not submitting everything that's come to their head. Because I guarantee, if you and I start thinking of ways to solve a problem or the various things that could go wrong, we can come up with a list of 50 or 100 things. But we don't have to tackle all of those. So let people come up with as much as they can. Don't let them worry about the quantity. So when they present to the team, ask them to present the top 2 or maximum top 3 scenarios that should be considered. And in an ideal world, you gather these top recommendations and you group them, because quite likely you might see overlapping constraints or overlapping scenarios. So you might as well group them together and address them at once. So this will give you a much limited pool, but a deeper pool than what you had set out originally with. Remember, your original plan was just one strategy that covered, let's say, one key scenario. Now your strategy will be multifaceted because you will be covering variety of scenarios. So this is an amazing way to build a lot of situational awareness. And even if you don't have the resources to tackle every constraint or every weird thing that the team came up with, if you do encounter it in a real world scenario, if you do encounter it in a real world situation, you will be better prepared mentally. At that point, you can be like, yeah, we knew this could happen. It had a very low probability, but it did happen. So coming to our cricket match example, it has happened so often in the past where, someone totally unexpected has taken the game away. And while that's a scenario that seldom occurs, the point is it does occur. Just being open to that likelihood puts your team in a much better mental state of mind. So any real-time adjustments that need to be done, you will have a better response. That response is key in comparison to reacting. So the other approaches the authors talk about are developing an outside-in perspective, to gaming it out, and to form diverse strategic groups. Now these are topics which we'll cover probably a bit later, and I've spoken about them, but happy to share further insights that can be applied in the real world. But the biggest one, in my opinion, is that scenario planning, where you're not just hoping for the best case scenario, you're considering all the other things that could happen. So do hammer out your strategy. It's your duty as a strategic implementer to factor in everything that could happen, and also inform your team that here are the various scenarios we need to consider. It's also a great lead-in to any ideation exercise that you could be having after this. So that's it from me for today. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what your thoughts are and how you go about factoring in multiple scenarios. Happy ideating.